It's been quite the week for UFO news, hasn't it? We've had Tim Burchett coming out with some insane claims that he's actually seen alien bodies. Jeremy Corbell coming out and speaking about even more insane things. And then Representative Luna also emphasizing and reaffirming the government's efforts to try and expose alien life to the general public. First thing, let's talk about Tim Burchett. The past couple of days have been an absolute whirlwind for the UFO community. You've got Ross Coulthart talking on Kenneth Arnold and his claims that were made with regards to a UAP sighting. You've got the likes of Joe Rogan having an intense dream that may have been alien contact, if you can believe it. And then you've also got Representative Burchett claiming, "I've seen beings." All of that we're going to be talking about in today's video, so be sure to drop a like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So obviously the first thing that we need to kind of touch base on is Ross Coulthart. Now, Ross Coulthart is a figure that a lot of people have mixed opinions on. I think it's safe to say. A lot of people say he's fantastic. A lot of people say he lacks credible evidence with the claims that he makes, like he used to. Well, he was recently questioned on his News Nation episode, right? Reality Check, where obviously subscribers comment in and ask him questions, and he was posed a question about whether Kenneth Arnold might have been lying about his experience near Mount Rainier. But Ross actually went on to make a really interesting point that incident wasn't an isolated incident. Take a little listen to this, because it adds a lot of context and a lot of weight to a lot of questions that people have been having with regards to, was this a genuine sighting or is this all a hoax?
Ask for a question from TJ. Hi, Ross. So the other day I was meditating and I was struck with a creepy thought. What are the chances that Kenneth Arnold was lying about the saucers he saw during his flight in Alaska? Was it a real UFO sighting or just the beginning of all alien UFO psyops?
I don't think there's any chance at all that Kevin Arnold was lying, and the reason I say that is because what people have missed, and I came across this when I was writing my book and looking at that summer of 47 experience, there were sightings both before and after Kevin Arnold's sighting over, I think it was Mount Rainier, which corroborated what he said he saw. There was a Forest Service warden in a tower which was on the same flight path as what Kevin Arnold described, and he gave a chronologically exact account of exactly the same movement, of exactly the same objects at that time. There were also commercial air pilots, and I think there were at least 3 or 4 other witnesses that corroborated Kevin Arnold's story. So no, I don't accept that Kevin Arnold was making this up. I actually do believe him, and moreover, if people look at the history of the summer of 47, what he was saying was not in any way unusual. This was a period of history where there was just an explosion of anomalous sightings of weird objects.
I mean, does that mean that that's the case? A lot of people are arguing in the comments section, well, no. So it doesn't exactly mean that this is the start of a psyop, but it also doesn't mean that he's credible with what he's saying. So obviously, we'll have to wait on more to see if what comes out of that is legit or if this is just some kind of crazy, elaborate hoax. But we're going to move on to something that's been said that's actually quite insane from Joe Rogan. Now, we all know that Joe Rogan is very on the ground when it comes to aliens and UFOs and UAPs and the like, right? Because he interviews a lot of people: Luella Zondo, David Grush, Representative Luna, Burchett, all the rest of it. All these people have been on the Joe Rogan Experience to talk about it, and he's a big advocate for UAP disclosure. But he's just come out with a claim that he had an intense dream that might be the beginning of alien contact. Yeah, let's take a little look.
We get started that I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. The most realistic and most bizarre dream. And it's so hard to try to explain how strange this was. But I was in some weird corridor that looked like a building but was odd. Very strange. And I was encountering these beings that looked like people, but very different. They were very thin, and they were slightly on the tall side. And they had big heads, like larger than normal, with larger than normal eyes. But they looked like people, and they were playful, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and then they joked around, like we're just joking around. It was the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life. And I woke up, and I could not go back I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I just went to the gym, and I worked out for a couple hours. And I was like, what the fuck was that? But it was very bizarre in that there was communication going on. It was like, God, I want to read into this because I know it's just a dream, but it was like, get comfortable with this.
You should read into it because it's a dream. So it doesn't make it right, but your subconscious is trying to tell you about something, and the fact that it felt very, very important means your subconscious thinks it's very, very important.
I woke up, I was tired, man. When I went to bed, I was tired. I was falling asleep watching TV. I went to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like beat down. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get some sleep. Because I had a long week, a lot of activities, workouts, this, that, the other. Tired. 3:30 in the morning, after whatever this was, woke me up so much that I just laid in bed for like another hour. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to sleep. I'm up forever. And then I just went and worked out. I worked out, and I was hoping I would be exhausted after I worked out and I'd be able to relax. But it was like a couple hours after that I laid down and I took a nap for an hour before I came here.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did you see a video, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, of some Chinese robots that seemed to be across on our side of the uncanny valley, that they walk with a gait that feels very human? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen that. Is that the latest?
I don't know. I've seen it a few times in the last couple of days. It sort of sounded to me like your dream might have been responsive, you know?
These things felt very organic. Whatever this was, it felt like living organic beings that were like us. There was also a water element. It was hard to understand what the water element of it was, but there was some sort of an indication that there was water and that there was a protection from you going out into the water. But if you did go into the water, there's a bunch of predators in the water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was reptile, like crocodile type things that were in the water, and that they had been like feeding them and keeping them calm and like keeping them away. But whatever these beings were in my dream, they were like what humans could eventually be. That's what it felt like. If it didn't feel like a person, but I don't feel like a monkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like that. It was very, very realistic. Like there was communication going on. And I was really freaked out. And they were fucking with me to lighten me up because I was freaked out. They're like, ah. And then they were like this, like, calm down, like, relax. It was so realistic. It was so realistic that when it was over, I wasn't sure what happened. Like, it wasn't like, whoa, what a fucked up dream. It was like, that was different.
I mean, it may not have just been a dream, as a lot of people say. And there is a clip that has been shared back from January of 2025 where Lou Elizondo stated that Guantanamo Bay official says that US used psychic attacks on detainees, right? And this has been linked in the comments of this clip multiple times, and people think that it could be something to do with this that Lou Elizondo said earlier this year.
Portions of Guantanamo Bay involving high-value detainees. And we decided to conduct an experiment where a few of us would get into a skiff. We had a brown bag lunch, and we maybe thought we could try to remote view. I had been to the detention facility before. I gotta be really careful what I say here. I can get a hell of a lot of trouble. Not realizing if we were effective or not, and then lo and behold, not too long later, a major news media article came out. I'm not going to say which one. That detailed this detainee's experience with what apparently the detainee perceived as 5 white figures over his bed, shaking his bed. So I called up Hal Pudoff and I told him, I said, "Hey, boss, I think we need to stop because it's now on the front page of the newspaper. I might not have been the front page, but one of the front pages of the sections there." And he kind of chuckled and he says, "Yeah."
So a lot of people are saying that this is in some capacity linked. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. Now, obviously, the big talking point around the UFO community, and also kind of greater than the UFO community now, is that of the new documentary that's going to be coming out incredibly soon, The Age of Disclosure. Now, we've had some little tidbits of information drop in about The Age of Disclosure kind of across the internet and what other people are saying within the documentary. And we've had that once again. This time, greater than ever before, as Tim Burchett has literally just dropped arguably one of the biggest bombshells the UFO community may ever see.
Yeah, I've seen beings. There's a movie coming out.
If something is here, it's likely been here longer than humans have even been civilized. So it really opens the question, and actually it's something that I think Charles Fort actually said, is, Earth is probably somebody else's property.
These are entities that are here on this earth, that have been on this earth, that who knows how long, and that we think they're coming in from way out. Maybe they did millennia ago, but they're here.
I guess so. I was interested in it because I've been asked so many times, and I talked to people that have said that it was a sighting. And it's very believable. It's very possible that there
I
is.
always remember the last thing this one high-ranking official told me as he left my office. He was right close to me as I am to my phone in my barn right now, and he said, "Tim, they're real."
I mean, it's kind of crazy that we've got people of this kind of level of efficiency or officiality with Congress saying, "I've seen it. I've seen beings. These things are real." I've got people from high-ranking places saying, "Yeah, this stuff's real." Like, genuinely, this isn't going away, right? And obviously, these people are trying to push for some kind of disclosure, transparency for the American public, which is amazing. And when you've got people like I say, this isn't just me saying, "Oh, I've seen something." These are people of really good stature and credibility. They need to do the job that they do. It's crazy. What do you guys think of all of this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace. Now, I don't think it would ever be a week on this channel without hearing something from Jeremy Corbell. So let's hear what he's had to say. So George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have just dropped an absolute bombshell once again with their Weaponized podcast. This is absolutely insane, as it actually features Dr. James Lakatsky, right? So this is part 2 of a 2-part documentary. The first part came out back on November 5th, I believe it was, of 2025. Of course, this was part 2. Now, in case you don't know who Dr. Lakatsky is, right? He is a retired US intelligence officer, okay, and rocket scientist with a distinguished career in the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, holding a Doctor of Engineering degree. He also specializes in advanced aerospace system with reverse engineering. His most notable role was the architect and manager of the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System applications in ORSAP, and the secretive Pentagon-funded initiative from 2008 to 2010. And he represented the largest acknowledged US government UFO/UAP investigation in history. Now, ORSAP is a really well-covered topic, so I'm not going to go over it too much, but what I am going to go over is his part to play within this documentary, because obviously this is quite a big deal. So the episode part 1 with Dr. Lukatsky actually released on November 5th of 2025 as episode number 96 of Weaponized, right? And the second part dropped yesterday, November 12th, 2025, escalating the revelations much, much further. So the key revelations are the government are playing the public, right? So Lukatsky accuses counterintelligence operations of targeting UFO whistleblowers, for example, disinformation campaigns, and criticizes congressional hearings as performative distractions that reveal little while adversaries gain insight. Obviously, that's quite a big deal because Representative Luna, Grush, Burchett, and all the rest of it would probably strongly disagree with that, but that's what he's saying. Skinwalker Ranch and paranormal ties, of course. So the details: Rogue hunts for orbs and entities at the ranch, linking them to UAP physics, apparently. And he hints at interdimensional aspects, including fast-forward entities emerging from craft, right? But there's also craft access and reverse engineering. So he alludes to an entering and intact egg-shaped UAP. No visible propulsion system, of course, observed, as it always is the case, echoing claims from physicist Eric Davis. Lukatsky won't confirm personal involvement, but stresses security rules allow strategic denials. For example, we found no smoking gun as a canned response from the DoD. There's also funding dramas. So it reveals that Senator Reid delayed ORSAP from funding from over 2008 election fears of UFO stories leaking and portraying him as quote-unquote crazy. Now, what's also interesting is he talks about David Grush and biologics. Obviously, David Grush, one of his most notable claims amongst all of them, pretty much, from his 2023 interview with Ross Coulthart, of course, was that he had heard about these entities, right? These bodies, these organic beings of some capacity, NHI. And that was obviously the big part. So he goes on to talk about that and reveals that, also reiterate Grush's claims that they are credible, but dodges biologics details. No darkness is detected, and Lukatsky sees the phenomena as potentially benevolent if humanity ever evolved. And then he talks about legacy programs as well, and he hints at pre-ORSAP involvement in older UFO efforts, but invokes classification. It's a pretty big podcast episode, to say the very least. So, obviously, there's clips that are going mega viral right now, and I've kind of whittled down some of my favourite ones. So, obviously, this is where Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are actually informed by multiple sources of one of the largest UFO incursions that actually happened over a month ago, right, in Texas. Take a little listen to this.
I don't know when this is going to air, but George and I have been informed by multiple independent sources that the largest incursion in American history of UAP at the day we're recording happened about a month ago in Texas over a military installation. And I know you're out of it now, but have you heard of that new recent incursion that is not public yet?
I haven't heard it. Though back after I retired and was still aware of what the various programs were doing, but there was heavy interest in UAPs back then. Now that had, how long have I been retired? Almost 10 years now. So
UAP incursions of military bases is real. You had to study them. You had high up information on them. So this idea that we're just testing an EMP back in the 60s and that's shutting down nuclear weapons is, in your point, would be nonsense, correct?
Nonsense. And from my point of view, it would be nonsense. If it's real, I'd be very surprised. And by the way,
it's real, meaning it was EMP fake out on everybody. You'd be surprised.
I'd be very surprised if it was any.
I mean, I think that tells volumes, doesn't it, really, when you think about it? Obviously, he's going on to talk about this. He hasn't heard about the incursion. I hope that we do get more details regarding that very, very soon. But he also tells Lukatsky tells Jeremy Corbell that he cannot discuss whether he was ever actually involved to any read-in to a legacy UFO program before ORSAP. Now, the silence is deafening to a lot of people. So a lot of people are seeing this and being like, wow. His silence almost kind of says that he was. Obviously, he can't say because probably, safety reasons, but let's have a listen to what he's got to say.
Through some investigative journalism over the years, I came to understand that you were read into and involved in a legacy UAP program before OSAP. Do you deny that?
I can't speak to that. The only other clearance I had was a Q clearance at DO.
I'm not concerned with your clearances. I'm concerned specifically with the question of if you were involved with and read in to a legacy UFO program before OSAP. And I asked you if you would deny that. Is your response still, I can't speak about that?
I can't speak about it.
Interesting answer there, obviously, because Jeremy Corbell is very down the line with that question. It's not, are you able to talk about this? It's yes or no. And he's like, he reiterates that point when Lukatsky kind of goes off on a bit of a tangent. And he's like, no, let's draw it back to the original question. That's really good. I liked the way that he did that, to be fair. And he's like, no. Let's bring it back to the original question. Yes or no? And he's like, I can't say. So neither confirmed nor denied 9 times out of 10 means that he knows something. He just can't give details. Moving on from this, though, of course, he kind of alluded, right, Lukatsky, to some kind of anti-gravity, but it hasn't been achieved to its fullest extent, right? That's kind of the words that he uses. And let's just talk about that, because if this is true, this is obviously a huge admission.
Yes, that you've got to look much further than nuts and bolts. Now, can you study nuts and bolts and use it for a levitating craft would be tremendous. Doesn't have to be a fast craft, but a levitating airliner. Think about the where it could go everywhere in the world. It wouldn't need an airport.
But don't you think we've already achieved that? Like, we hear about all these people on military bases seeing triangles, and you're doing this study, OSAP, to try to figure out the physics of how to do that. Do you think it's already been achieved by the U.S. government, or it hasn't, and that's why OSAP had a lot of value?
It hasn't been achieved to its full extent. And by the way, that's where...
You could see by Jeremy's face, right, when he said that, Jeremy was like, gotcha, right? He was like, you've told me everything that I need to know. And that was very clever wording from Lukatsky, right? Because he didn't kind of outright say, yeah, that's a thing that the US government has developed. He's like, it's not developed to its fullest extent. Which, again, neither confirms nor denies all of the things that he stated. Now, of course, if you want to check out the full episode, you need to go over to the Weaponized podcast over on Jeremy Corbell's YouTube channel. It is The Government UFO Boss, Monsters, Men in Black, UFO Crashes, Dr. James Lukatsky, Part 2. And then you can get eyes on the full episode for yourselves. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace. And of course, Representative Luna, being the figurehead of the UAP caucus at the moment and leading the UAP congressional hearings that have gone public, she's been very vocal about a lot of things as well. Representative Anna Paulina Luna just made some crazy claims with regards to everything pretty much extraterrestrial on the news, right? And it all comes after the government shutdown over in America. Of course, everything's kind of closed down over in America. It's caused a lot of disruption. And whilst answering questions on that, Representative Luna also dropped some pretty big hints into the extraterrestrial space, right? So she basically goes on to talk about how extraterrestrials aren't just like some crazy conspiracy theory, because obviously there's this whole stigma. If you mention aliens, UFOs, and all the rest of it, you're wearing a tinfoil hat, you're out there looking for shooting stars and UFOs and, you know, abductions and probes and all the rest of it. But that may not necessarily be the case, and she kind of highlighted that quite well within this recent interview. She went on to talk about the UAP disclosure efforts, which of course was the main topic, and she has been at the head of that with Congress, with Tim Burchett and, you know, a lot of other people with regards to this topic. And then she also goes on to talk about, obviously, Three-Eye Atlas, which, of course, has become one of the biggest talking points in the UFO space and also in cosmology, because you've got Dr. Avi Loeb, who's saying something along the lines of, well, I've got a theory that this might not necessarily be, like, just natural, and there's some other things to kind of back that. And then there's obviously stock trading bans that they talk about and stuff like this. Let's take a little look at the episode, or the interview, because it is quite compelling. It is quite interesting to listen to. And whenever Anna Paulina Luna talks, 9 times out of 10, your ears prick up and you tend to listen. Take a little look.
Now for more Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. It's been a busy day, Congresswoman. Good to see you. At this point,
nice to see you too.
Who are these people who are still blocking the truth from the public?
Well, to our knowledge, it is definitely members of the intelligence community, and then also, too, we were recently denied access out of the Department of War, stating that we didn't have access and the proper, I guess, need-to-know authorities to look at some of the classified footage that is out there. As you saw in that clip that you just showed, there's actually some footage that was dead dropped to Eric Burleson, of which he then provided it to the task force. And so all I have to say...
So the one that she's referring to there, of course, is the Hellfire missile video, which has gone and been spoken about a hell of a lot. We won't touch too much on it because it's a well-trodden ground at this point.
Look, in the interest of national security and national defense, obviously this is something that we should question and look to find answers for, but also it also signifies a massive problem when you have elements within our own government that are denying access to Congress. And this is not just a bipartisan effort, this is bicameral, meaning the House and the Senate are both supporting this, both Democrats and Republicans. It's probably one of the few things that is bipartisan. And actually this week, I think it's going to be on this upcoming week on the 17th. There's going to be a movie coming out called The Age of Disclosure, of which Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in there talking about this exact topic, and I think everyone should watch it.
Let me ask you about that, and I will. You're on the record talking about, quote, non-human life forms that could be interdimensional beings who are visiting us. Can you just explain more to people at home what that might mean?
Now, those, of course, aren't just unfounded claims. I know I keep stopping it. I'm sorry. It's just to provide a bit of context for those that might not have been keeping up with everything. Those claims are obviously coming from David Grush, who is under Eric Burleson right now within the UAP task force and serving in Congress, David Grush is, as a UAP advisor to Eric Burleson, who is at the kind of the figurehead of these things alongside Representative Luna and Tim Burchett. So a little bit of context.
Yeah, so that's definitely a mouthful, but that is directly based on information that we've received from witnesses, also information that we have obtained and witnessed via our investigations. There's some stuff that I can't disclose of what I have immediately seen in some of these skiffs, but what I will tell you is this is not just some crazy conspiracy theory. Obviously, there's been massive reporting, not just in the United States, but around the world. And this is something that I think everyone kind of, has always had some curiosity about. We're just simply asking the questions now publicly.
And it feels like...
Again, I'm sorry for pausing it again, but just to provide context, when she says from around the world, obviously she's referring to Russia there in particular because they've just done an information swap, essentially. And, that she's been speaking to a lot of people within the Russian government and essentially what these guys are doing, and they've done a bit of an info swap. Allegedly. That's kind of what we're led to believe anyway.
Like we're building towards some sort of disclosure. I know many people are hoping that Donald Trump is president and that he's ultimately the person that allows that to happen. We just had the acting NASA administrator and transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, on this show moments ago. And I asked him about this, what they're calling a comet, Three-Eye Atlas. Take a listen to his response.
The experts at NASA have said this is a comet. It walks like a comet, talks like a comet, struts like a comet. It's a comet. I know some people have said, listen, there's alien life on here, or that at one point they said it was going to hit the Earth. Not true. But it is a fascinating comet.
There's no conspiracy.
You mentioned Kim Kardashian, so I wanted to clarify that. No, there's no conspiracy theory.
You did. All right. So, Congresswoman, NASA has yet to release the photos. They're releasing other photos every day. They blame the shutdown. They've yet to release the photos. Do you buy that from Sean Duffy?
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with NASA because I was helping Avi Loeb, who's actually a Harvard astrophysicist who's been looking into this for some time.
Right.
And remember, this is going to be one of many objects that we're going to be getting through that are interstellar because of the technology that we have now. So there are some anomalies about the comet, like, for example, it lost its tail, which is pretty much one of the first that we've ever seen. But I do believe that it's a passing through comet. And so I don't think that we are going to have any contact with any non-human intelligence yet.
All
but
right.
the ruling's still out there on what this is. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to ask you about some legislation that you've been a part of to prevent basically another Nancy Pelosi from ever happening again. It would ban congressional stock trading.
Yep.
Why isn't there, two questions, I guess. Why hasn't this already happened? And why is there not massive bipartisan support for something that makes so much sense?
Well, there's massive bipartisan support from the American people, but as you're saying...
We'll stop there because obviously then I can go on to talk about trading and stuff like that, not necessarily within the context of the UFO stuff that we're interested in, right? So, obviously there, she gives some little tidbits. Obviously, 3i Atlas, she talks about Avi Loeb, who has been at the forefront of saying... I don't believe that this is necessarily a comet at one point, or there's indicators to state that this may not necessarily just be acting as a comet. Obviously, this is one of the few interdimensional comets that we've actually witnessed. I mean, the 3 literally stands for the third one that we've seen. So, it's not acting as a typical comet would, which is why there was so much spark and interest around it, right? So... obviously, now that we've got far greater technology, this might become part of the norm. Oh, yeah, we've got another intergalactic comet passing by. Obviously, this one was quite huge as well because everyone was saying that, it's going to hit the world, then it wasn't going to hit the world, and then it was going to hit Mars, and then it was going to hit this, that, and the other. And it's now essentially, it's just cruising through. It's just passing by, and it might give us a little wave on the way through. If it does, then obviously we'll cover that. But, yeah... very interesting stuff. She kind of goes over and reiterates a lot of the points that she makes, but of course she talks about a lot of the things that she has seen in the skiff, which is really interesting because this, I'm curious about what she has seen and what Eric Davis has seen and what Eric Burleson has seen and what Tim Burchett's seen, right? Because obviously we know that Grush was held up like at gunpoint on his way into the skiff. What was that all about, Hopefully we get some more details on all of this. What do you guys think about Representative Luna's latest interview? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace. What do you guys make of all this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.